Now it's not. Okay. So no source sheet. We are recording. So I think everything, all the boxes are checked. We can start. The two topics for tonight. One of them is it's not as great as tshuva, but it's a great topic, and that is right. What we call taras hamishpacha. We're going to the mikveh for a kallah who is not from in Israel. The second is lions on a parocha. That's a bonus topic for tonight. Can you have a picture of a lion on a parocha? Okay. We might. But the first one is the more interesting. Now I'll give a plug for one of our summer speakers from Sohar. Right, Sohar is a rabbinic organization in Israel that's trying to, I wouldn't say normalize the rabbinate, but normalize the rabbinate and try and make the interaction between the rabbinate and people better. It has a lot of agendas. Rav Stav, who heads Sohar, will actually be coming for Shabbos this summer. It's a very important, I think it's an important and very worthwhile organization because they're really trying to do good things. And I'll give you one example. It relates to this tshuva. You have a young woman who's getting married in tattoos up the wazoo. She's not religious. She wants to get married in Israel. You have to go through the Rabbanut, and you have to get a certificate that you took a Kallah class, and you have to go to the mikveh. I actually once had a couple. I had this woman when I was in Lincoln Square still. She came and said, "Can I write her a letter that she took a Kallah class?" I said, "Did you?" She said, "No." I said, "Like, I'm not writing you that letter. Like, I understand the predicament. I understand that they're forcing you to do this. I'm not writing you a letter that's a lie. Like that, I'm not doing for you." But she did come to ask. All right, so that's the question here. I'm standing before my wedding. So let me go. I'll get back to that, to the scenario in just a second. The rabbis want to make me go into the mikveh before the chuppah. I don't understand what the purpose of this is at all, right? Of this antiquated ritual. That's pretty direct translation. They don't speak to me. I will get a better hygiene clean in my shower. Okay? And she's right. She probably will get a better hygiene clean in her shower. The problem is that she's forced to go. And before organizations like Tzahar, there are some others, right? This woman in Tel Aviv probably got matched to some Rebbitzin from Bnei Brak. And imagine this scene, right? The Rebbitzin with the shaved head and the shaitel and the pillbox, maybe not the pillbox, but certainly the shaitel, in Bnei Brak is trying to teach this young woman that has tattoos from head to toe how to go to the mikveh. I think that goes
not well.
Not well, right? I mean, that's has disaster written all over it. So there are Beit Hillel's a rabbinic organization, Zohar is another, right? They're really trying to not compromise the halacha, but it's just different approach, right? Meaning that the way you speak to people, the way you explain things. But that's the question that he gets. And this is well before any of the other rabbinic organizations. Right. So think about it, it's a fascinating question. What do you tell this girl? She's not interested. She kind of has to do it. I give him points for honesty and I'll give you the approach, and then we can think about whether we like this approach, whether it's a good approach, or not. The first thing he says, she'ela kasha, very hard question. Okay. And not because there's no answer, but because there's no off-the-cuff answer that's going to be satisfactory to somebody who is not observant and has no background, has no understanding of Judaism and halacha or anything like that, right? He says that the response would require all kinds of introductions and explanations in order to try and convince somebody that this is actually a good idea, right? He says, I have another book, I spent over 30 pages on it, but not in this format. I think these have been adopted from, like Rav Ovadia Yosef's Yechaveh Das, they've been adapted like from a radio show, it seems, at least in this tshuva. Right? He says the radio format is not one where I can, spend 30 pages trying to explain this to you. So then he does something which I think is interesting. I'm not sure it's true. I'm sure he thought it was true. No, meaning let me tell you what he said, and then you can tell me what you think. All right. the first thing he says, right, is nevertheless, I'm going to give it my shot. And therefore, very briefly, he says that there are scientists, Jewish and non-Jewish, who praise the practice, the customs, and the laws of Taras HaMishpacha, and they believe that, he doesn't spell it out, but they believe that prevalence of issues and diseases that happen less frequently in people who keep Taras HaMishpacha.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the science of that is. I hate to say this out loud. I'm going to say it out loud. I'm not sure that the fact that people keep Taras HaMishpacha means they're more faithful, right? Because clearly being faithful is going to lower your chances of getting an STD, if that's
Right.
what he's. But there's in every community there's maybe it's higher, maybe it's not. I don't know. It's a good question. But what's interesting to me is, right, that's what he starts with, right? Again, it's vague, so I'm not sure exactly but I think it's what he's referring to, right? Sugei machalot hamitzuyot benashim who don't keep this, right? Types of diseases that are found in women who don't keep Taras HaMishpacha. So that is his. Now the question is, so why do you think he goes there? Right, because that's not why we keep Taras HaMishpacha.
But he's not saying healthy for a marriage. He's really saying healthy
For the
terms of
individual.
disease.
Yes. Right. The question is, why does he say that as opposed to trying to, I mean, there are other answers, right? There are answers both for mikveh and for, now again, this is specifically about mikveh. So you have to be fair to him. It's not about, right? The joke in all of this is that rabbi or rebbitzin who forces her to go to the mikveh is never going to speak to them again. So it's not about what happens after. It's not about whether they keep of nida for the rest of their lives. It's a moment in time, right? So he's not explaining why being halachic in this area is a good idea, and that there's actually a fair amount of literature on. It's a fair amount of literature on that, from the Gemara to Rabbi Hirsch to Rabbi Lamb to others. There's certainly that's been discussed. The mikveh itself, that is the topic here. I think he's trying to respond to her argument. Her argument was hygiene. Her argument was cleanliness. He's trying to at least give some type of answer on that. Right. In that sphere, I think, again, I don't put words in his head, but I think I think that's what he's trying to do. The second thing that he does, which is also interesting, is, right, let's take a step back. How would you explain the value in just going to the mikveh? What's the meaning of mikveh? It's an interesting question.
To bring holiness into a physical area by following.
How does the mikveh do that? Right, so that's what he's referring to. I think in the beginning is, yes, I think that's what you're getting at, is a lot of Judaism is attempting to take areas that are very physical, very material, and putting them in spiritual context. Right, I think that's right. Underpinning is Judaism. That's why we have Taras HaMishpacha. It's probably why we have kashrus. Right, it takes a very physical, enjoyable activity, eating. And now, every time I go to the store, let's check a hechsher. Is this good? Is it not good? Am I buying kosher? Not kosher? Right? Every decision we make is, what do I put in my mouth? Do I make a bracha before? I make a bracha after? There's just, you've taken something which we share with the animals, right? Which we enjoy. It's physical, it's material, but we put it in a spiritual context, right? At some level, time, it works that way with time, Shabbos and Yontif, right? And it works that way with intimacy with Taras HaMishpacha, and that makes sense. But to really understand all of that, right? The girl asking this question might not care at all, or might not get it. So he's trying to answer the question that's being asked in a way that actually might be effective, right? Even if we know that the reason that we go to the mikveh is not because we don't want to get diseases. That's just not in any way, shape, or form. That's not it. But I think it's an interesting attempt to try and be sensitive to the person and try and answer the question that is being asked, right? And then he takes out. There's one other piece that he puts out, which is also, I think, interesting. All right, and he says, right, how do we really understand all of the secrets of nature, right, of the natural world? And what he does then is tries to explain that there's life in the physical world, right? There's life certainly in human beings, there's life in animals, there's life in plants, there's things that right, there's growth, there's life. And this is actually an idea he attributes to Rabbi Ben Zion Uziel, who was one of his primary rabbis, who was Sephardic chief rabbi of Israel, tremendous personality. He's quoted him before, tremendous personality. That water, right? Water has, I'll read you his language, right? Lachen gam b'mayim yesh chiyut. There's life, right? There's literally there's an energy, there's a life in the water, the same way that there's life in plants, right? Plants grow and they give fruit and they die, and of course people and etc. And therefore, his argument is that the water has a certain right quality to it, or a certain again, it's hard. Chiyus is a hard word to translate into English in this context, right? But if you think about it, right, what waters can you go into and use it? Right, every so often you get one of these shilas from somebody on vacation. Right? Can I go in the ocean? It's a good shilah, right?
Mhm.
You can
Yeah.
go in the ocean,
Sure.
right? You can go in the ocean. It's just, then you have to go at night in the ocean. It's dark, right?
Yeah.
How do you work that out? What about riptides? There's a lot of different factors that are fascinating. Right? Robe on, robe off. That's a dangerous question on a public beach. We'll leave that for another time.
Lakes.
Right. So lakes, rivers, those become smaller bodies of water become a little bit more interesting. But that's again not our topic for tonight, right? Still water, running water. But essentially it's water that's in its natural habitat, right? Even the mikveh that we use is rainwater collected. It hasn't been sullied by vessels, the elements, etc., right? That there's a certain natural life, again, life is a funny word, but an energy or a life to that water that is inherent, and that is the power of the mikveh. Right?
Pure.
Right. That it's got its original life energy or life force from the water. Once you put it in your sink, it's a different kind of water. It's no longer connected to the ground, connected to nature. It's an interesting approach. Again, I'm not sure how effective it was. But it's and then he goes on a rant about metal, and I didn't actually understand it because I don't understand the words, right? The scientific words, and I wasn't actually interested enough to go and look up the scientific words. Once before there were smartphones, I got called for jury duty when they finally took away the rabbinic exemption from jury duty. I'm still bitter because I missed 3 brisin, 2 in the shul and one of a good friend. I missed Moshe Roth's kids' bris because I had to be on jury duty, and I didn't even, which I got out of eventually. So, but you don't have a phones, pre cell phones. So I brought an article on the kashrus of microwaves. I couldn't read it because the first 10 pages were how the microwave works in Hebrew. I don't know any of those words, right? I mean, I don't know how you say current or electrical current charge. Like, I don't know those words. Those are not halachic words. They're not spoken Hebrew words. So I had to play chess in my Palm Pilot. It's terrible. That's what I was doing. Like 3 hours of chess in my Palm Pilot. How spoiled we are with cell phones. So that again, not. I think, again, the most interesting thing to me in this tshuva was his attempt to answer the questioner more than it was to answer the question. Because I don't know, he did a great job of answering the question. But he was attuned to the question and tried to meet her on that level. And I think that at least should be appreciated, right? So that is tshuva number 1. Tshuva number 2. Turn the page here. And this is, you can imagine this scenario in any shul in the world. Okay, somebody donates a parocha with lions, right? 2 lions woven onto the parocha. Somebody donates it. I guess they didn't have a good committee to vet it. And now half the shul loves it. They think it's gorgeous. They've seen it elsewhere. They love the lions. And half the shul thinks this is idolatry and we should take it down and give it back and return his money and tell him to stick it. Right? Again, that can happen in literally any shul in America.
I've seen that.
It might actually be there.
Elizabeth.
No, I'm going to check. We're going to see if in the base measures right here we have lions. And we'll figure out whether we should tear it down.
Yep.
All right, hold on.
Oh, gosh.
There you go. There's Jeff, and there are our 2 lions, if you can see it. But, I know, but it's Assyrian, so we don't count it. No, I'm kidding. This was actually this build of parochas for when the Park Avenue Shul went to the base medrash many, many moons ago. It's an ode to a time before they outgrew this place and built a monstrosity, and then broke off and spun off into 2 other shuls. Okay, right? They actually have 2 breakoffs now from that shul.
Don't know any.
In your
Yeah, all good. What do we say? Yay or nay? I know it's there. What's the issue? What's the idolatrous issue? Right? They think that it is. Yeah, right. What do we say in the 10 Commandments? I am Hashem,
No,
your God.
No, there shall not be a
Right.
graven image.
Right. Lo ta'aseh l'cha kol pesah v'chol tmuna. And then
Right.
it keeps going, right? What's the rest of that pasuk? Elokami mal, right? It actually refers to the heavenly sphere. So the question is, right, what is the prohibition of idolatry? Right. So in a fascinating truth. Sorry, yes.
I always thought it was a matter of a person in idolatry. It's an image. We have so much imagery throughout our entire Torah in terms of all the Shvatim and who they resemble. And here,
Hold on, but you do not have pictures in the Torah. We have words that evoke images. Nowhere in the Torah do we have pictures. If you have a picture in your Sefer Torah, you should get another Sefer Torah, right? That's treif. No good. Puzzle, not treif. Can't eat it, but it's puzzle, probably kosher.
but in the Beit HaMikdash and in the Mishkan and the Kruvim, and I mean,
So the Abarbanel asked that now the Kruvim, depending on what they are actually much more problematic than lion. The Abarbanel asked that question on the Kruvim, right? Which is a fabulous, fantastic question, right? But it's, Linda, I think it's a question more than it is a proof, right? The Torah says don't make any images, and then where do we stick the Kruvim?
on top of the
On
Aron,
top of the Aron in Kodesh HaKodashim.
right?
God says, don't make images, and what do? We stick it in the holiest place we can find.
Tell us to put it there.
Well, that's right. So that's the rub, right? The Abarbanel says, yeah, when God says don't do it, don't do it. When God says do it, you should do it. That's not the greatest answer, but it is the right answer, right? Meaning, so what's with God did not tell Mr. Etery's family, right? Olav Hashalom, to put lions there, right? When God commands it, you have to do it. That we get. You got to do it. Right? Where did the lions come from? That I have no idea. Right? Meaning
Yehuda.
maybe not. We have no idea. It's possible. Again, it's a good thought, but who knows, right? Who knows the first person who put lions on and where it took off from? Yeah, you need an art historian, Jewish art historian, maybe could figure that out.
Yeah.
Eagle, some of the,
So eagles are actually more problematic than lions too, right?
have
Some
that
people like to
something-
pull the eagles down. Here we don't have, there's no eagle on top. Everyone can see the flag in the front of the Beis Medrash.
Right.
There's no eagle on top of that American flag.
we have crowns.
But you do have it in
Yeah,
Sternberger.
yeah. We do, and we have crowns with eagles, right? So you have all of these issues. And the question is, so where do we draw the line? Right? We know we can't, or we shouldn't have of people. Certainly constellations. Well, let's take a step back. Other gods are out, right? Bad. Right. So there is no cross with a little Jew hanging on him in any of our shuls, right? That's very bad. What was that?
Or backyards have it.
Yes, I know. Right. So
Yeah, we all have them in our backyard.
there's a great little yashki hanging with a great view of the beach. But all right, so all idolatry, of course, is out. Rav Ovadia has a tshuva. They asked him about Rebbe stamps, that they wanted to print in Israel stamps with famous Rebbeim on them. And he says two things. One is, I know you think you want to honor the rabbis, but what do you do with an envelope? Throw in the garbage. So you can take all these rabbis, you can throw them in the garbage, right? Number one. So you think you're doing good, but maybe you're not doing good. And then he says, it also might be a prohibition of idolatry.
They have Rebbe cards, so they,
Might be the same thing. All right, it's an interesting question.
kids never collected them, but.
I never did either. Right? So most people believe that it has to be, and we'll see this in a moment, that it has to be three-dimensional. But if I remember correctly, but I haven't seen this too in a long time, he quotes a Pischei Tshuva who says that even two-dimensional might be a problem. Now, we don't paskin that way, but for whatever reason, Ravaji did not want Rebbe stamps. So, maybe, right? Where's the real gain? And here you have two potential losses. So this is, as it says in Shulchan Aruch, I will translate it for you. You may not make pictures, right, of the four faces of the Merkava in Yechezkel, right? There's the chariot that has the four faces, and that is a bull, a person, a lion,
Winged.
and an eagle.
Yeah.
Right? So they can't be done together. Right? You can't have one picture with those four. You can't make the Merkava. Right? And you can't have pictures of angels, right? Srafim open. I don't know what the difference is between Srafim, Opanim, and Malach Ashares. They're different types of divine beings. Okay, whatever. If you can figure out the difference, that's very good. Right? Also, a person cannot be done. They can't be drawn. Right? Even if they are for beauty and not for, obviously, if you're going to worship them, it's bad. But even if they're for beauty, right? Some people who have statues of people, they break the nose. Or they break off the ear. That's what happened to was it Venus de Milo? They just chopped off his arm. You no, but you have to mar it in some way. But when is that true? When it is bolate, right? When it is three-dimensional, it comes off the page, right? When it's a figurine and not a picture, right? A picture, a two-dimensional picture is fine. But it can't be in form, right? Bolate means to be in form, right? But if it is, right, literally something weaved onto clothing, right, or a picture on a wall, or a stained glass, he doesn't say, but a stained glass window, right? All of those are permitted if they are flat, one-dimensional. The exception is the sun, the moon, and the stars. Those are just always prohibited, right? Which is interesting because that literally says in the Ten Commandments, right? That's in the Psukim. So it's in the Psukim is out, and then the other stuff, right? Celestial realm, people, two-dimensional seems to be okay. Three-dimensional seems to be out. And then he said, right, even with a person, some people think it has to be a whole person. So if you had a bust of a head, that might be okay, right? Bust of Caesar's head or whatever that might be, that's kosher, but you can't have the whole, Caesar. Right. So now from all of that, it seems like The lions alone should be fine, right? Strict halacha, even though there are more tshuvos on this than probably there should be, and probably because there are fights in shul about it, not because it's such a serious halachic issue, right? But every time it comes up in shul, and one guy doesn't like the stained glass windows, and he's screaming, right? So then we go after them. We don't like that because some guy made it. Oh no, who's that? Sorry, I'm just poking fun. Right? And then the question becomes, right? But I'm using that as a funny example of, well, then how does the question come about? Right? And the question comes about, well, can you have a non-Jewish artist? Who does the artist have to be? Sometimes the questions come not because they're the most important questions, but because people have questions. Things happen in shul and people have questions, and those are good questions, right? So that's, I think, why this question comes up so often, is because somebody puts it on the wall, somebody wants to donate it, and everyone goes crazy. So they ask the rabbi, and they write a tshuva. So we have a whole bunch of these tshuvos. Most of the tshuvos, and this tshuva as well, are permissive. They allow it for two reasons. Number one, strict letter of the law, it's not a problem, right? It's only if you do the chariot four together, right? The eagle, the bull, the person, and the lion. You can't try and recreate that chariot like that piece from Yechezkel. That's not good. But you can have them separately, and certainly if they're not a figurine. Okay, so that he says strict letter of the halacha is that it is okay. But then he says there's another issue, which is this is actually also fascinating. And I think in our shuls we actually do a pretty good job of it. He says there's a distraction issue, right? Meaning if you have too much stuff in shul, people are looking around, people doing all this stuff. That's why we put them in the back. Now I get it. Now you understand, because if you see them, you'll be distracted. Now we get it.
Wow. Otherwise, you'd be staring at them.
Otherwise, we'll be staring at them.
Gotta go back to.
See, now you get it. Now you understand.
Wow.
Oh, all these years later, we finally figured it out. Who knew? Took us 20 years.
Tell everyone.
Tell everybody.
They had to put it in the back.
Had to, right? But he says there's a halach in the Rambam, you can't wear colorful clothing to shul. Nobody can, right? No, I mean, maybe that's why they wear black and white in Lakewood. But the issue there is an issue of distraction. And I guess if everybody wore black and white, you probably shouldn't wear red, because then it's like everybody's gonna be looking at you. We were in Atlanta and there was a woman wearing just this biggest, oddest fur hat. And the truth is, like Shine, I kept looking at it because it was just really funny looking.
Yeah.
And you're sitting like facing each other, like the mechitza is the middle, and you're sitting like facing each other. And like your eyes just keep going back to us. Like, is she really wearing that hat? It was like the grandmother of the bar mitzvah or something. I don't know.
What did Shai say? He must have said something.
Nothing I can say on Zoom. And nothing that's being recorded. It was Friday night, but like, it's distracting because then it's like, all right. So he thinks that he doesn't think that's an issue with the lions and the parochas because we're used to it, but he does object to having all kinds of art all over the shul. Not from a halachic perspective per se, but he would like a simpler shul because it's less distracting. And then you can concentrate, you can focus. And at the end of the day, we go to shul to daven and to focus and not to be distracted. Right? Listen, at some point, after you're in shul the second or third time, you get used to all of it and it all fades into the background. Not that either of our sanctuaries have that much art in them. Right.
In Europe, in many of the towns that I had gone to, wherever there were shuls left from that remained, they had davenings on the walls. It wasn't pictures. I mean, there were some that had some, but basically it was sukkim or tefillot aleinu or whatever, as opposed to pictures. In Poland, to Cochin.
Yeah, because in Poland they were poor; they couldn't afford the pictures. No,
Right. Or whatever.
Right, I'm saying so that's just as a secondary issue, is a fascinating issue, right? What should our shuls look like, right? How much how much art do you put in the sanctuary, right? Is that appropriate? Is right as sanctuary art? What's its role and what's its value, and how distracting will it be? So that he was more concerned with than not. But at the end of his tshuva, he writes Number one, neither issue is enough to get rid of the lions. And of course, he says at the end, I will finish with an azhara chamura, with a very stringent and strict warning. Stay away from argument in shul, all place and all time, because there is nothing worse for a shul than a bitter fight. Right, words to live by. Not that would ever happen, chas v'shalom, in a shul. God forbid, never happen. All right. I think the winner of the survey was, I think we're not going to do studying for tests on Shabbos because nobody seemed to care about that. The winner of the survey was a mother's role in the chinuch of her children. So that we'll do next week, and then maybe we'll do the other three combined. I haven't figured that out. Let me see what's next, but I think that was definitely the winner of the survey. Alan Cohn did not want to speak about shaving at Chol Hamoed or any time because he likes his beard. But we might do that tshuva anyways because it's interesting. But you won't have to shave at Chol Hamoed, Alan. Hold on one second. Here's Alan's beard for everyone to see. Okay, there you go. Maybe a little trim. There you go. All right. Does anyone have any questions? Or I wish everyone questions on either topic. All right. Wish you all a good night. Come back next week.
Good night. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye bye.